New York City is home to 3.1 million immigrants, the largest number in the city's history. About 500,000 of those immigrants are undocumented, and while some are recent arrivals, many have been living and working here for decades. Still, for all the undocumented, the last 2 years have been marked by fear of being detained or deported. And the fear may be justified. Since President Trump came to office, 20,000 undocumented immigrants living in New York City have had deportation proceedings filed against them. And during the first 8 months of Trump's presidency, ICE arrests in the region jumped by 67% over the previous year, and arrests of immigrants with no criminal convictions increased by 225%. City of Fear, a recent New York Magazine piece written in conjunction with the Marshall Project, seeks to show how Trump's immigration crackdown has profoundly affected the lives of New York's undocumented population. The article tells the real-life stories of people whose lives have been upended by detention and deportation, and describes the fear that many immigrants live with on a daily basis. It also documents the steps New York's immigrants are taking to protect themselves and their communities. And joining me now to talk about all this is the features editor of the Marshall Project, Geraldine Seeley, who edited the piece. Geraldine, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So Geraldine, first of all, I wonder if you could quickly tell us what the Marshall Project is and how immigration fits into its mission.
Certainly. The Marshall Project is a nonprofit news organization that covers criminal justice. It's been around for about 4 years, and we collaborate with media organizations around the country, more than 100 so far, including this package that we collaborated on with New York Magazine. In the past year or so, we've expanded our coverage to include immigration. It's not only kind of a parallel justice system, but it has all kinds of intersections with the criminal justice system.
What did you hope to document in this project, and what did you find?
When we started thinking about this project in January, two very prominent activists, immigration activists, had been detained, including Jean Montreville, who was eventually deported, who we interview in our package. And right around that time, ICE had also conducted raids. They don't like using the word raids, but they're commonly called raids across the country in 7-Elevens, including more than a dozen in New York City. And we started asking ourselves what life was like for people in New York. You know, it's a so-called sanctuary city. It's one of the cities across the country that, to some degree, does not cooperate with federal immigration authorities to enforce immigration laws. Did it feel safe to people? I think one of the things that is often missing in immigration coverage can be the voices of people who are most affected. Yeah. So we sent, between the Marshall Project and New York Magazine, our partners on this, we sent out more than a dozen reporters over the course of weeks and eventually months to interview more than 100 people, immigrants of varying statuses in New York City, along with lawyers and advocates who are working on immigration, to find out what was going on. And what we did find, as you mentioned, was this new level of fear under the Trump administration. I think it's important to remember that under President Obama, who at one point earned himself the nickname Deporter-in-Chief, sure, there was also a level of fear that was justified. Yeah. What's different now, as you mentioned, one of the things that President Trump has done and that he did early on in his administration was to say everyone is a target of ICE now. Yeah. It's not just people who have criminal convictions, which during the Obama administration was more of a priority.
Yeah. All right, one of the most captivating things, if I can use that word, about the article is that you speak to individuals who are suffering this experience, and it's heartbreaking, harrowing. One example is a woman who was taken by border agents off the bus in Niagara Falls as she was coming back from her honeymoon, right, and then she's now awaiting deportation. So the question is, are these representative of what's really happening here in the city and around the country? I mean, could the argument be made that the fears of deportation are greater than the reality?
What we found when we talked to people was that, yes, those fears are real in communities across New York City, across the 5 boroughs. A pastor, an undocumented South Korean pastor in Queens, Youngmin Lo, who we talked to in our story, he talks about how even people who are legal people who have green cards are worried because being out of status at all, you know,
Sure.
let's say having like any legal slip up, a DUI or something, you know, people are afraid that that could get them in trouble.
What does it mean? How does it affect all of us in New York City when such a large population of the city is living in fear?
Well, this is a city of immigrants. It's built on immigrants, and you know I think that it's important to think about so many people living in fear and so many people having to you know eventually, let's say, with the temporary protected status for Haitians and El Salvador's and other countries ending soon, tens of thousands of New Yorkers who may be leaving. We really need to think about you know what that means for the future of our city and the makeup of our city, and I think that that is still something to be determined.
All right, Geraldine, it's a very important and very striking piece. Thank you so much for doing it, and thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.